Hi there, it's Gerhard Bloom here, and looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So in light of, or in honor of, the Gay Pride Month that we have, let's look and see if we can dig deeper here to find out what's really going on. Okay, I would be the last to deny that gay people were subject to, shame and ridicule, taunts, and stigmatization, right? I think that's wrong. But something deeper is happening here. Liberals believe, like, supporting critical race theory and Black Lives Matter, or in this case, the radical trans movement and the sexual identity movement, they're continuing on the sort of 1960s civil rights movement. They've been hijacked. These movements have been entirely co-opted by neo-Marxist ideology. To give you an understanding of this, first there's the big question of narcissism, right? Narcissism, it's no longer acceptable just to be tolerant of, minorities or gays. Now you must, and in particular, the trans movement and the sexual identity movement, the gay movement, you not only have to tolerate it, you need to actively celebrate this, right? This is the rise of narcissism, where everybody needs to be praised for being exactly who they are, independent of their achievement. And this isn't me armchair theorizing. An excellent book by Jean Twenge discusses this exactly, and she rolls out the data. The rise in clinical levels of narcissism have risen recently and dramatically. Where did this start? California? Of course it started in California, right? Of course it started in California. This was theorists believing that they could solve the world's problems by raising people's levels of self-esteem, right? So instead of recognizing that in a healthy psychology, your self-esteem is correlated to your achievement. But along came these social theorists and thought everything from teenage pregnancy to juvenile crime to delinquency, this was all a product of low self-esteem. Ergo, you had the self-esteem movement pushed in the schooling system. And it's been absolutely disastrous. And when they actually tested students, the poorest performing students had amongst the highest self-esteems. Black male students had the highest self-esteems, and they were scoring at the absolute bottom academically. The Asian students, the Chinese students, scored bottom in the self-esteem, and they had the highest academic achievements. And I feel very sorry for these Chinese students, right? They should have had actually very healthy, robust self-esteems. There is something known in the Asian culture, it's a shaming culture, right? So it's not accidental. But it is a problem that, self-esteems have become radically untethered to social achievement. So when you see, the gay pride and the flags and people being coerced into waving the banner, this is an expression of this narcissism that you have to welcome, support, and trumpet the gay lifestyle, right? No, you shouldn't have to. I am deeply sympathetic to Christian parents and, normal middle-class families that don't want to embrace it. Several years ago, I checked out the Gay Pride Parade, and this is when I was still quasi-delusional. And I was absolutely shocked that, they were floats with half-naked men wearing ass chaps and thongs, sexually gyrating on parade floats, and parents are there with their little children. These little children, have no idea what's going on, and this exposure to this vulgar sexual display I found just repellent, right? At any rate, that's the narcissism piece, and it's a big problem in the entire social justice movement, and it's no exception in this radical sex and gender ideology. The other issue here is that, notwithstanding your belief perhaps that this is an extension of the civil rights movement, it's not. This movement is grounded in queer theory and gender theory, just like critical race theory is grounded in theory. And when you hear the term theory, this should be a clue to you. A radical feminist theory, queer theory, critical race theory. They all come from the same root, which is neo-Marxist or cultural Marxist critical theory. Critical theory informs all of these. Now, the thinkers that led to this are people like Gregory Lukács, Antonio Gramsci, and members of the Frankfurt School, most famously Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, and Herbert Marcuse. Now, these theorists scratched their heads and they wondered what happened to the revolutionary force that the exploited proletariat was supposed to represent. The proletariat, the workers of the world, were supposed to unite and overthrow the bourgeoisie because the bourgeoisie were oppressing them, and they were going to constitute a revolutionary force to overthrow their oppression. Well, it turns out, instead of overthrowing the oppressors and the capitalist system, the proletariat was busy buying color televisions and new homes and station wagons. Yes, their lifestyles rose dramatically, and there was absolutely no interest in engaging any utopian revolution. Instead of these theorists realizing that, maybe we might have been wrong here about this Marxist theorizing, no. They started looking at other possible vehicles for this revolution. They convinced themselves, and now they're trying to convince you, that these various identity groups, racial groups under critical race theory, gender groups under this queer theory and radical feminist theory, and of course you still have the deluded socialists out there parading as well, right? But critical race theory, gender theory, this is cultural Marxism. So cultural Marxists believe that you are being oppressed in innumerable ways. And one of the ways it allegedly manifests itself is sexual repression. And the Frankfurt School married up with some of this Freudian nonsense. So Freud famously argued that children were polymorphously perverse, right? Infants could gain sexual gratification orally, anally, when they defecate, there's supposedly some gratification there. And that as you get socialized and acculturated, as you mature, you grow into the heteronormative sexual pattern most often, right? So your sexual energies and this polymorphously perverse freedom is channeled and restricted and constrained, ergo you're repressed, right? You're repressed, and queer theorists want to liberate you from this oppression. This is why you get, in the schooling system, books that are, under any other description, pornographic, discussing anal sex, oral sex, masturbation, mutual masturbation, threesomes to elementary school kids. Yes, this is going on. And recently, in Texas, parents took their children to a gay nightclub and exposed them, quite literally, to overt homosexual activity under the guise of what do you call that? The entire burlesque thing, the drag shows, right? This is drag shows. So it's showing small, young, impressionable children. Parents brought them to a gay bar and exposed them to this drag show. Now, this isn't, you know, the old style burlesque show. This is highly sexualized men pretending to be women, half naked, in G-strings, gyrating to little children. And of course, these kids are confused. Now, it should be noted that in any other description, these drag shows would be called out for the gross parodies of women that they are. Now, this is obviously a gender correlate to the racial blackface performances, right? It's disgusting. Where is the anger? Well, I actually have some anger. And I believe that legislation is being tabled right now in Texas to ban people from bringing children into these the sexualized environments. You know, so these performances aren't funny, they're not engaging or entertaining or enlightening, they're damaging. So we need to consider that this is extremely harmful, and these ideologues have absolutely no wish to stop. This exposure, as I say, it's going on in classrooms across the United States, and parents need to be aware of this threat. These cultural Marxists are using race, they're using gender, they're using sexual identities, and they're weaponizing them. The explicit aim of these various theories is to undermine democratic Western values, and it is absolutely toxic and destabilizing, and this shows no signs of abating. Fortunately, you have some pushback, like the legislation that's being tabled in Florida, and Governor DeSantis in Florida, banning this toxicity from being taught to kindergartners up to grade 3. His only mistake was that he should have banned it throughout high school. The only sexual education children should be receiving is basic biology, the biology that's necessary for them to get into the universities. And unfortunately, the universities are a free fire zone, completely co-opted by leftist ideologies, but you know, they have intellectual freedom, and in an ideal world, this freedom would manifest itself in the contest of reasonable ideas and the weight of argument and evidence. Most universities in the United States are an absolute lost cause, but education in the grade schooling system, there's not, free speech does not apply. The citizens of the states have every right to oversee the educational system and to make sure that what's being taught in the schools is reasonable and rational and breeds some kind of recognition of the value and importance of the country, of the rule of law, and democratic values. This needs to stop. At any rate, that's my little rant. I hope you find it interesting and informative. Please do check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. No, it's not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues are important. Thank you very much.